We're here at the Balboa Island Museum with Tom Mellon. It's April 28th. My first question is, what is your earliest memory of the island?
Around 1960, one of my swimming coaches brought me down to work out with Newport Harbor High School on a Saturday. And afterwards, we came here to the island to have lunch.
Me. So it was through your pastimes you discovered the island and...
Yeah, my family had not been in California long, so I was really not familiar with the island.
Great. What was it like in the 60s for you? Did you recall?
I didn't really hang around here a lot that first visit, but everything looked pretty much the same. It was a lot of cars, a lot of people. It was a sunny day on the weekend. Really, it was not much different than what it is now. Just some of the businesses have changed.
Certainly. When did you move here?
I moved here in 1979.
And what was it like at that particular stage?
Well, again, the place just hasn't changed all that much. It was very much like it is now. My first apartment was on Amethyst. And the company I worked for transferred me around a lot. So there were times I had to leave because of employment. So I left here in about 81 or 82 and went to San Diego for several years. And then came back in the 86, 87, something like that. Then they transferred me to Studio City, that's out in the San Fernando Valley, and I moved again, and then came back here about 10 or 12 years ago.
Great. Why did you initially move here? What was the big draw for you?
Well, I had just gotten divorced, and I worked for Home Savings of America. And during a slump in the loan business, they transferred a lot of employees they didn't want to lose to the savings branches. So Home Savings had a savings branch up in Fashion Island. It's now something else. When you drive up from Coast Highway up the main road, you pass a large white building with big tall glass windows. That was built by Home Savings. It was the Home Savings branch. And during this slump in the loan business, they transferred me to work as a teller. So I was a chief appraiser with company cards, credit cards, and a company car, and I had been with the company for years, and I was working as a teller. You don't meet many tellers with company cars. And so worked with a young lady I knew from another office we had both worked in, and she was getting married and was buying a condo in Irvine, and I knew I had to move somewhere. I was just staying with a friend. And she said, well, I'm going to leave my apartment, and I know the owners didn't want to rent it again. They're getting older and they don't want to take a chance on problem tenants. But she said, if you're interested, I'll introduce you to them and see what happens. So I came down, like I say, this was in '79, and met with them. Their name was Owens. They lived on Amethyst. I think it was 327 Amethyst. And they were in their 90s. He was about 94. She was nearly as old. And so met with the people and we talked. And Mr. Owens finally said, well, okay, they would would rent to me, and then Mr. Owens pulled me aside, and the girl who was moving out, this beautiful girl named Luann, he said, Tom, I have to tell you, Luann is not paying the rent she should be paying. I knew she was paying $450 a month, and that was way under rented even for 1979. And he says, so I think we're gonna have to get a little more rent going forward. I said, okay, and he said, how does $500 a month sound? It should have been $700 or $800. Okay, he said, how does $500 a month sound? I said, I think that'll work. And so that's how I moved in there.
Neat. Would you share why Balboa Island holds such a special place in your heart?
Well, lots of people I've known and worked with have said to me at different times, oh, how can you live there? I mean, I know it's beautiful and it's fun to go down there and walk around, but thinking of the summertime, they'll say, it's always so crowded, you can't park, you can't get around. You know, it's just impossible. How can you possibly live there? And I said, well, I look around and I see people who have traveled 1,500, 2,000 miles. They brought their family out here. They're renting a house for $2,000 a week and loving every minute of it. And I said, I'm there all the time. I enjoy all the same things, and I don't pay $2,000 a week. So, and I'm a water person. I was a swimmer and a water polo player in high school and college. I grew up on the lakes of Minnesota and rode a boat, canoed, fished, swam in the lakes all the time. And just being by the water is what I enjoy.
Great. Would you have a favorite Balboa Island story that brings back fond memories of your childhood or brings out that inner child in you?
Well, I was not here as a child. I was a teenager the first time I saw the place. I really can't think of a favorite. There have been so many social functions and things that have all been fun. Maybe one of the most enjoyable is back in 1979, I started going to, used to be the Jolly Roger, now it's called Wellness. Started going there for breakfast every Saturday morning. And a group of regulars met there. It was kind of organized by a guy named Ed Crowell. And Ed would recruit people to be there. So we'd end up with 15 to 20 people there for breakfast. That group still meets to this day.
I've heard.
The oldest two of that group from 79 and 80 are myself and Bill Crawford. Other people have married, moved on, passed away, one thing or another. So he and I are the old timers out of the group. But the group has continued since then. And that is a lot of fun.
Do you have a group name or is it just by association only, you know?
Oh, there's nothing organized about
No,
it.
very
No.
just...
Yeah, everybody just comes on Saturday morning. The target is to be there around 8:30. And Wellness treats us very well. The busboys know that we'll be there. So every Saturday morning, they slide 4 tables together. They know that my friend Bill has trouble getting in and out of their chairs. So they slide a wooden chair up for him to the center of the table where he likes to sit. A couple months ago, somebody was complaining to him they never got to sit next to him at breakfast you're always at the far end of the table. So he told myself and somebody else to make sure that his wooden chair is always set in the middle of the table so people have more chance to sit by him. So,
would you have any special holiday memories that relate to the island? You had mentioned just about some of the social functions. Have you been a part of those?
yeah, my good friend Chuck, who works here in this museum, he has a really nice Christmas party the first Friday of the Christmas boat parade. You can't actually watch the parade from his house, but it's only about a block away. And he has a great party. I know he would like to reduce the size of it a little bit, but every year people keep saying to him, "Are you having the party this year?" He said, yeah, I'll be there. So he ends up with about 100 people crammed in his little house.
Let's see, what about with 4th of July, or have you been a part of some of those gatherings as well?
Oh, sure.
Community?
I've watched the boat parade on the 4th of July. So there have been gatherings like that. The other fun party we seem to have every year is at the end of the summer after the tourists are gone. Chuck and Margie, Craig and Margie, hold a party at their house that they call the Thank God the Tourists Are Gone party. And we do it the week after they leave because it's still hard to drive around then. And that's always a lot of fun.
Great. How did the island become a home to you?
Well, as I said before, I was looking for a place to move to after I got divorced, and Luann told me how much fun it was to live here and how she enjoyed it, and introduced me to the landlords, and so I just didn't leave, except when employment forced me to.
Would you share about a favorite story of any celebrity you might have encountered here?
Celebrities. I've seen, oh shoot, what's his name? An Olympic champion who was a marathon runner and an Olympic decathlon championship. I can't think of his name right now. And he still comes down here. I've seen him walking around a little bit. We see you're making me remember names. That's too hard. It's unfair.
Perhaps just describing their...
He was the coach of the UCLA football team
okay.
and the coach of the Raiders.
Okay.
He lives here. See
Donahue.
him.
Donahue.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. And an interesting story I heard about celebrities, I didn't actually see them. Years ago, when Paul Newman and who's the guy who makes all the movies with, or used to, they made the Western, where they end up having to run away to South America. Major handsome star.
John Wayne, the cowboy, or was it Western?
No, a handsomer star, a younger guy. He was in the movie The Sting with Paul Newman. Christ, just can't think of his name. But he was one of Hollywood's very leading, most handsome men, and he still directs movies. He's still occasionally in movies. So anyway, Paul Newman and him were down here drinking one night. And they left, I guess, the Village Inn, and were walking down the South Bay. Both had had much too much to drink. And they walked onto somebody's front patio, pulled up their lawn furniture and laid down and went to sleep.
Oh,
And so the next morning, the 50-some-year-old lady who lived in the house came out her front door, and she sees these two guys asleep on her furniture. And she starts yelling and screaming at them. And so Paul Newman and whatever his name is, both stand up and they apologize, and they walk off and leave and get about 5 feet down the sidewalk, and she recognizes them. And she yells, "Oh, wait a minute, come back." And Paul Newman says, "No, you had your chance."
Oh, wow. Would you share about any life-changing events that occurred to you at Balboa Island?
Oh, I don't know that I could say anything life-changing, did
Sure. Some have seen it as a personal thing, or maybe as a communal effort to the change over time that they noticed. So I don't know if you've recognized anything like that.
No, sorry, I
Sure.
just really can't think of anything.
Would you have a favorite story about a business on Marine Avenue, even if that business does not exist today?
Well, yeah. It doesn't exist because it never got started. There's a little real estate office almost straight across the street here. It's now called Home Real Estate, I think. And I knew a pharmacist and a doctor who had been friends since they were boys in New York. I met the pharmacist in Mexico at a resort hotel, and we became friends. And he and his doctor friend started coming down here, along with the one guy was married and the wife came. And they would hang out around here on a weekend, and they'd walk around, and they started renting a house and vacationing here. And so one day, this fellow approached me and he said, "Well, the doctor and I are thinking of investing in a Haagen-Dazs ice cream shop. And we want to put it here on the island. Would you be willing to become the manager of that shop and have a third interest in the ice cream shop?" And I said, "Sure." I had been laid off and was self-employed, but I was definitely interested. So we contacted Haagen-Dazs, and they got approved to put in an ice cream place. And then Haagen-Dazs said, "Well, where do you want to put this place?" And Ben and his friend said, "Well, we're going to put it on Balboa Island." And this fellow at Haagen-Dazs got out a map and looked at it, and he said, "Well, let's see, there's a Haagen-Dazs in Laguna Beach. Oh, Balboa Island's only that far away. That's too close." And they argued with them and argued with them, and they were just convinced that we were too close to Laguna Beach. We could get a franchise, but not for that location. So we just gave up the whole idea. Ironically, about 2 years later, Haagen-Dazs opened up over in what is now home real estate, and was there for half a dozen or more years until eventually it went out of business.
Oh, fascinating. Any other memories from when you first visited in the 60s to present day? Any other significant
Well,
business
even in
for
the
you?
60s and in the 70s when I moved here, the businesses and everything all looked pretty much the same. However, there were some subtle differences. We used to have things that people actually need. We had a dry cleaner. We had a pharmacy. We had a hardware store. There were things that on a day-to-day basis people had need of. It wasn't all t-shirts and suntan lotion.
Liquor.
Yeah, we had a liquor store. Yeah.
What do you think brought that change?
There seems to be an attitude among a lot of people that if they come here and open up some kind of touristy related business, that they're just going to make a fortune because they see the crowds of people walking around. But if you look close at those crowds of people that fill our sidewalks in the summertime, you don't see many of them carrying shopping bags. And sadly, the owners of the real estate on Marine Avenue are charging far too much for the rent for their places. And so people open these businesses up assuming they're just going to make a ton of money, and they're struggling to make the rent payment, and they end up going out of business. And it's almost comical to watch sometimes, because you'll see a woman's clothing store open up, and about 8 or 9 months after they open up, they're having radical sales, and pretty soon they're having a going out of business sale, and a week or two later they're gone, and about maybe a few weeks or a month after that, another woman's clothing store opens up in the same place. What are these people not figuring out, that these things are just not surviving?
I'm fascinated by the community because it originated as a vacation spot, so very seasonal, and then it became more of a permanent community.
Yes.
And so the businesses
Yeah.
changed dramatically from being more practical, like you're explaining, to more visitor friendly. And so it seems like it's kind of swapped this mentality
Yeah,
from a business standpoint
um,
of not.
Many of the earliest residents came from Pasadena and the communities around Pasadena for some reason. I don't know why, but they did.
Right.
And it was an all-day trip to get here from the San Gabriel Valley to the island in those days. And that's why it wasn't a year-round residence. Now, of course, with the freeway access being easy, now it's possible to be that. But it used to not be that way.
Right. Well,
I thought, as I said that,
sure.
of one other interesting show business thing I saw
Oh,
one
great.
time. There was a old-time silent movie actor named Buster Keaton. He was a comic, and he made a lot of movies and was a big silent movie star. He actually made movies well into the 1960s, but they were bit parts then. He was never the star again. He made a movie where he was supposed to be a newsreel photographer in the early days of newsreels with a big old-fashioned hand crank camera. And there's a scene in the movie where he's supposed to go to New York Harbor to film a yacht race. Well, they filmed it right out here in front of the pavilion. You can see the pavilion as they go by it. And that's supposed to be New York Harbor. And I always find that funny. I watch it whenever it comes on an old movie station, because it's fun to see them using
Right, and
that. And the interesting thing is, when you look at those pictures from the early 1900s, and you see whole blocks of empty land. There's a scene in it where the camera points from the peninsula side across the water up towards these hills in the background here, and there's not a house on them anywhere. Very interesting.
Quite a transformation here.
Yeah.
It's neat that you've seen it change over the years and have been able to share all these memories. Did you have any final thoughts that you'd like to contribute here?
No, I think you've got it all.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for your time.
It was my pleasure.
Thanks.